I saw something. There was this
Clown.
It Chapter 2 is the long-awaited sequel to its predecessor film, It, of course. It is the second iteration of Stephen King's book, of course, It. Like I've said before, and I will keep saying, I am a huge horror movie fan. It is, I won't say by far my favorite genre, but if I had to pick a genre that I consistently like just the most and really like I get excited for films, it is the horror genre. And I've always said for a long time, and I keep saying, if I were to have one opportunity to make a feature film, it would be a horror movie. I would like to start with a horror movie. With It in particular, I actually really did enjoy the first one, such as that's on my wall. Of course, like I said with the first one, I love horror movies, so naturally I just loved it. And one of the things that I loved about the first one as well is they are not afraid to show anything, to get as dark as they possibly want. They didn't go quite as dark as Stephen King does in his book, but I still just loved it so much. And so of course, I was very excited for this upcoming film, It Chapter 2. And just like the first one, it completely provides on the scale of creativity and just absolute freaky scariness. They don't stray away from any of that gore, and one of my favorite things about It, and this one in particular as well, is they get so incredibly creative with just the visuals and everything that they show you and just the different ways that they try and scare you like it's a horror movie. It really feels like everyone behind it is really putting the time to think about just all the different creative, really different ways that they can kind of get in your head and the different visuals that you wouldn't normally see. Because it is a movie, of course, about a scary clown, but that's what I love about it so much, is it really isn't just a movie about a scary clown. This movie does definitely have way more depth than that. I can definitely see saying that some of it is cheesy and kind of forced and thrown in, but for the most part, I was really impressed with the fact that, yeah, it's not just a scary horror movie with the clown, you know, Pennywise is like the main character. The main characters are our main characters, and one of my favorite things about this film, even though, you know, of course I love the horror and everything, is we learn so much more about the characters. There's, you know, complex relationships going on at the same time. Again, nothing too crazy, and if you were to call it cheesy, I wouldn't exactly fully agree with it, but I would understand where you're coming from. I do love all of the characters. This is definitely not a film where I don't care for some of the characters whatsoever. For the most part, I really do care about each one of the characters, and as well, just like the first one, I was impressed with the acting. I think the kids do a super impressive job. Just like the first one, I was so impressed with just the fact that you can get a cast of all these kids who are that competent and actually that good of actors is really impressive, and I love what they did. I love the same thing in this one as well. I think they do just as well. Of course, then you get to the adults, and there I didn't really have any complaints with anyone in particular. I thought everyone was pretty solid as well. Of course, naturally, just seeing a kid actor be pretty good, seeing a kid actor being pretty good versus seeing an adult actor be pretty good, I'm naturally going to favor the kid actor because it's more impressive at their age. This is definitely just the beginning of all these kids' careers, and it's really awesome to see. You know, hopefully they don't change. Hopefully they're still the nice kids forever. But I think it's really awesome to see such talented kids, you know, get the notoriety that they deserve at the beginning of their careers. Jack Dylan Grazer in particular, you know, I feel like when you think of the It group, I feel like he is one of the main kids that pops up in the beginning. He was in Shazam as well, so he's had some pretty big success so far in at least 3 really big box office hit movies. So I'd say things are going pretty well for him so far, and I'm really happy with it because, yeah, I love his work. I think again, it's just so impressive what he's able to do at that young age. As far as the rest of the cast, of course, there's some pretty notable actors, mainly for me at least, Bill Hader and James McAvoy. Of course, I love James McAvoy mainly because of his character in Split and Glass, of course. I think he is an amazing actor, and he's getting more recognition nowadays. I still believe he deserves more. Because, yeah, again, even in this movie, in It, he's still impressive as well. So yeah, again, I was just genuinely pretty impressed overall with the cast. Not too many complaints there, and I just overall really liked the experience of the film. I don't know if I've said before, but I love horror movies so much, but I don't really have a lot of reactions to them. When you're just sitting in a chair in a theater watching a horror movie, and, you know, the sounds are super loud and the visuals are huge right in front of your screen, and you're just sitting there in the quiet, and all of a sudden a jump scare happens, you know, then you get those like physical reactions from people. Now, I don't know what it is. I'm sure it's just me being naturally just a really toned down, calmed, emotional person. But I just, that never really gets me. All the jump scares and everything, I've always said like horror movies don't really scare me that much. It's really movies when they like creep you out, that they have that lasting effect, that you're thinking about things like you don't feel safe in your home anymore because you know, you're always scared of like the shadows and everything. But for me, that mainly comes from like the creepiness of different things, not necessarily like, oh, there's a bunch of jump scares and they were scary. So that doesn't normally affect me in the theater. Although, in this film, and kind of the same thing with the first one, but I definitely think this one, again, like I've said before, I don't really love the use of jump scares. I think they can be a pretty cheap way to just get, well, a very cheap way to just get a bunch of easy scares. And this film definitely sometimes does start to peter over towards that, like I think there's a little too much. But I do have to say, the times that there were specific jump scares, they were done pretty well. Lots of build up, and again, a lot of creativity with just not just basic stuff. And it feels like, I think naturally part of the reason that I don't react so much is I've seen so many horror movies throughout all of my life, and so you kind of get the feel for like the natural timing that comes with jump scares. If let's say it feels like something is going to be under a bed and it's clear that the camera is like panning towards the bed or something, or the music is rising, it's normally, you can tell there's a certain like timing when that's gonna happen. It doesn't feel like that timing is really hit that much in this film. And because of that, it's not really as easy to expect when the jump scares are going to come. There's a certain balloon under a bed scene, which that's all I'll leave it at, and that definitely got me. That got me pretty hard, I'm not gonna lie. Something I haven't done in a while. I was sitting in my chair and then all of a sudden it's just, I got like an actual like jump. It was pretty grand, I would say. But yeah, I did want to touch more on the fact that this is not really just a scary clown movie. You actually have these characters that, again, you learn more about. There's all these nice relationships that are kind of intertwining and everything, and it just kind of, you know, complicates things from the character's perspective, and not just the fact that they have to deal with a clown. They have their own inner dilemmas and issues that they have to solve within themselves to, you know, go back to being the friends that they used to be. Now, like I said, things do get a little cheesy sometimes. Sometimes there are definitely some moments where the characters start to get towards that basic, like kind of dumb horror movie character where it's like they're just not thinking about things rationally and not taking the easy way out and making things harder for themselves. That definitely happens a little bit sometimes. I don't think it was too much to really stray me away from like being, okay, this is stupid, they're just being stupid. But there were definitely times where I thought, okay, you could just not do that, or you could literally just walk out the door right now and then that would literally be it. But overall, that didn't really affect my viewing experience too much. I do think this film is also just a nice resolution to the end of these characters and the end of this It story. Of course, everyone who has seen the first iteration of it, the old TV series, little TV series, then you weren't really surprised by that much in particular. They do some different creative things, but I mean in general with how things wrap up, then you wouldn't be too surprised. But I do think it's just like a nice resolution and everything, and you know, again, they're not scared to show like the bad and have bad things happen and you know, to the characters and everything, and it's a horror movie, so you know, take with that what you will. There's normally not full happy endings in a horror movie, so there's not like. What also goes along with the creativity is I actually think there's some pretty cool cinematography in this film at times. Different camera movements and just the way things look as well is pretty interesting and cool to me. One thing that I really love is just the general colors of Derry. Derry naturally has like a really weird, odd, gloomy feel to it, and I think the colors that, you know, it's normally portrayed and shown as really like amp that up even more. There's a lot of like browns and tans, and it feels like, and it just kind of makes things kind of like just kind of like offsetting, and I love that. I think that adds to the feel even more. Also, for all of you who have not seen the first film and are trying to take my recommendation for seeing this one, I would definitely say watch the first one first before you go and see this one, because while they do explain pretty well what happened in the first one and kind of catch you up with the story, there's definitely a lot in this film, like a lot of callbacks and a lot of different things that are just kind of cool to see, like, you know, from the first film that you definitely won't have a reaction to if you haven't seen the first one. I think overall it just makes the viewing experience way better if you have seen the first one, you understand the story, and you can just understand all the callbacks and understand where everything is coming from. Because I actually saw this film on my birthday, so happy birthday, woo, 19.
Happy birthday to dear one.
But I went and saw this film with my dad and my brother. My dad had seen the first one before and my brother had not. And I was a little worried that him coming to see it would kind of ruin the experience. And I was kind of looking over, kind of seeing where he was at the whole time, kind of seeing, you know, how confused he was. For the most part, he seemed fine, but I tried to put my headspace kind of in his and kind of tell, yeah, there's definitely some things that, especially in the first half of the movie, before everything has been explained, I think there were some weird things that would probably, you kind of have to take the time to think while you're watching it to be like, what is all this stuff, and you know, so you can really understand if you haven't seen the first one. So basically, see the first one before you see the second one, so you just leave yourself for the best experience possible while watching it. Just like the first one, this film also does have some nice messages as well, and that again goes back to the fact that it's not just some bland horror movie, there's so much more to it. And yeah, there's just some nice messages in this film, so all in all, there's a lot to take away from it. I did like it a lot. I don't really know if I liked it more than the first one or not. It definitely felt like this film had more gore and jump scares and horror, everything like that. I think part of that is definitely just the fact that this movie is pretty long. It's almost 3 hours, not quite. So that probably has to do with the fact that there was more gore and horror stuff because it was just a longer movie, so there was more to pack in. I was also pretty impressed with how similar they were able to make the kids and the adult actors look. Like some of them like genuinely fully look like they're the adult versions of themselves, and if you were to look at the kids 30 years from now, that's literally what they would look like, is those adult characters. So I was really impressed with that. I don't think there was any sort of makeup or anything. I think they legitimately just, you know, had good casting of the actors to make them look so good. Although, I do have to say, Ben's character transformation, or the new kid, as he's also known as, from child to adult is pretty insane. It's a pretty bold comedic choice, but I guess, you know, whatever floats your boat, we'll float down here. Reference. But all in all, I was pretty impressed with the film. It is a high budget film, so of course things are gonna end up looking like that, but just the visuals and the creativity and just everything, and it just having so much depth and not just being a basic horror movie, which thank God, thank you so much for adding even more to the horror genre. Thank you. But yeah, it was a good experience. I loved it a lot. Definitely memorable. Definitely had me thinking a little bit afterwards kind of about everything, and it's a nice resolution. So all in all, I did enjoy the film, and I am actually going to be giving it Chapter 2 an 8 out of 10, which I'm a little surprised at because I thought I was going to give it a 7, but it just, when I thought about it more and thought about how much I loved about it, ended up getting an 8. So that brings us to the end. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you are new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe because I have a ton more content coming out. I'm on a content grind right now. If you like sports, if you like business, if you like film, all of this stuff, I'm going to be covering everything on my channel, kind of giving you guys an entrance into my life, and yeah, try and show it through the filmmaking. And you guys, give this video a like as well if you enjoyed it. Let me know your opinions of the film in the comments. I would love to read them, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.